Our students are the future. How we advance innovation and impact and approach equity in their classrooms will determine how we thrive as a world community. The status quo just won't cut it. That's why we're here to break the grade. Hello, breakers and difference makers. I'm Josh Chernikoff, host of How I Broke That. I'm a two-time entrepreneur in the education space, and I've successfully exited both of those companies. I've experienced my fair share of breaks in my life, and I'm here to bring my signature approach to my new show, Breaking the Grade. I'm embarking on this special journey alongside my good friend and mentor, John Gamba, Director of Innovative Programs and Entrepreneur in Residence at Penn GSE. In our podcast, you'll hear from emerging business owners in the education space who are working to transform education as we know it. Tune in as we hear about industry trends, unique principles and practices, and the attempts that have and haven't worked for our grade-breaking guests. So fellow entrepreneurs and educators, what do you think? Are you ready to take a hammer to the education space and break the grade? Welcome to another edition of Breaking the Grade. I'm saying that a little slower because this episode is called The Rest Advantage. Why slowing down might be the smartest move for you, the founder, the entrepreneur, and your business in the education space. Let me say this out loud. I want everybody to hear it. Rest isn't lazy. It is leverage. Rest isn't lazy. It is leverage. If you're a founder in the education space, constantly pitching, constantly posting, constantly building funnels, refining your offers, and that's you, right? I might be talking to you who's constantly trying those things, which, as we know in our community, are also known as slow burn methods. And you're not seeing traction. This could be your wake-up call. Because here's the truth. Some of you don't have a lead gen problem. You have a clarity problem. And clarity doesn't come from doing more. In fact, it comes from slowing down long enough to think. Yes, you want clarity, slow down and think. Most education founders believe rest is risky. And I am here to tell you that if you slow down, you won't fall behind. In fact, you may get ahead. Inside education sales, what I have seen is that when people slow down, when they get a little bit of rest and clarity, we start to see the opposite. Yeah, there's that word again, the opposite. We just released a show about the opposite, that Seinfeld episode. So if you want to learn about how I encourage entrepreneurs and founders and people in EdTech to do the opposite, yeah, we got a show on that. The best education founders don't push harder, actually. They pause smarter. They create space to refocus their messaging, rework their pipeline, and just kind of reset how they're doing everything. And in fact, we do this too. Okay? We do pause quite often and take a look at how we're posting, what we're posting, how effective it is. So I'm with you, hopefully, now that you hear me, that I take rest as well. This episode is about the exact shift of resting and resetting. So I want to tell you a story about a company that I've been working with, love working with. It's actually run by a guy named Ken Spiegel. He has John and Samantha and some other members of his team. And Ken has been at work for many years for his literacy platform. Many years couple of decades. And in fact, he was working so hard on his posting. They were posting several times a week. They were doing webinars. They were testing their offers, but they weren't booking calls. And I asked them, when was the last time you stopped and really looked at what you were doing? And they hadn't really done that at all. They were kind of operating in motion, but not with any momentum with their messaging. And I've been there too. I thought hustle would equal traction. It doesn't, and it didn't for Ken and his team. The turning point came when I took a week off. The turning point has come from them with coaching with me and also just taking a step back and resting and looking at everything they were doing. And in their case, kind of doing the opposite. Not to check it out, not to just look and see, but we dove in. But we weren't just pushing and pushing and pushing. And that's when the clarity hit for them. That's when the real messaging came through. That's when their leads started to flow. They took that rest. They did that reset on their messaging, and the leads started to flow. So in this episode, I'm going to show you why rest isn't a threat to your business. In fact, it's a strategic multiplier. I'm going to show you how burnout can actually lead to sloppy messaging and scattered sales activity, no good, and what we teach EdTech founders inside the Ed Sales Elevation Experience about using rest to get clarity. And finally, we've got a framework for intentional pause that creates better leads, not just better mental health. That is a wonderful bonus. So here's the number one takeaway. Motion does not equal momentum. I said that earlier. I will say it again. You can post daily and still say nothing at all. That's what Ken and his team were doing. Activity doesn't actually equal advancement. Rest is what gives you the pause to recenter your voice and your strategy. And that's again where you should look at the opposite effect show that we have. When George Costanza did the opposite of everything he had done before, he ordered tuna on rye, now chicken salad on wheat. And everything started working, and he decided he was going to be different, and he landed his job with the New York Yankees. Rest works. Rest brings messaging clarity. Most founders overwork a bad message. Yeah, that's not good. Overworking a bad message means you're also overworking yourself and you're burning out your potential clients. In education sales, we teach clients to audit their messaging, especially during slow seasons. We are going to release this in July of 2025. That should be a slower season for you when it comes to your content. Clear communication does not come from hustle. No. It comes from headspace. And when you've got that headspace, you can communicate more clearly. Rest builds confidence because confident messaging comes from stillness, not scramble. When you are still, you are not scrambling, and therefore you will have clarity in your messaging. Rest is where you find your true tone. Rest is where you can polish up that tone. And we've seen founders return from this pause and book more calls. And when they book more calls, they get more confidence. When they get more confidence, they get more clear. It all works that way. So how should you got a little excited because I got some real good tips coming. How should you rest strategically? Step back from your current content and see what's working. See what people are engaging with and do more of that after your rest. Revisit your perfect client. Are you solving the same problem for them or do you need to solve a different problem? And after your rest, go solve that problem. Reset your lead gen system. What needs pruning, not just pushing. And after you figure out what you can prune in your lead gen system after your rest, things will flow better. So again, I want to reference the Opposite Effects show. I think that will help a lot. There's a lot to be said for resting and then potentially doing the opposite. So these shows could be a 1-2 punch for you. The Raise Your Hand campaign show. Okay? I want you to listen to that show before, after, during your rest and see how slow, strategic engagement beats high volume engagement. Because then you are listening, and then you are learning, and then you are doing exactly what your ideal client wants and needs, not just what you think you need to do. I want you to listen to, if you get a chance, please, the episode From Chaos to Clarity with Nick Fahrenkopf. Nick really talks about the importance of rebuilding his own confidence and messaging after he had his own burnout. So again, I don't necessarily like to date my shows, but I can tell you that we're putting this out on June the 21st is when I'm recording this. We'll then put this out probably sometime in July, which is a nice time if you're in the sales part of your EdTech business, which you probably are, which is why you're listening to this, to take a break, to reset, to rest, to recover, and to recharge. And when you do that, again, think about listening to the Opposite Effects show. Think about listening to the Raise Your Hand campaign show. Think about listening From Chaos to Clarity. You're going to get more confidence from Nick Fahrenkopf. Good dude who came out of the Ed Sales Elevation Experience and not only has more confidence and clarity, he's also closing more deals. That can be you. So if you're in a season of pushing harder, trying more, testing nonstop, maybe what your business needs is you to stop and get some space. Seeing what really works well versus just doing a lot are two very different things. When you pause with intention, my friends, you don't lose momentum. Okay? You build it back better. That is the rest advantage. This is your permission slip from Coach Chernikoff, Coach Cherney, your lead gen coach, to take a rest, recover, recharge, reset your messaging, figure out what is working and do more of that. Don't just push hard. I'm here for you guys. Again, I'm Coach Cherney. That's what they used to call my dad, Cherney. So we're going to go with that for now. I appreciate you guys listening to the show. I hope you hear me loud and clear and know that I'm always here for you. Very easy to find on LinkedIn, very easy to find via email. And if you need any help taking that rest, let me know. I'm happy to give you a 1-to-1 permission slip to tell you to take a rest, recharge, and reset. You guys got this. Enjoy it. Thanks for listening, Breakers.